he just brings a different dynamic with his legs, and I think he did a great job tonight. Tough atmosphere. I think he came in and handled it well. But like you said, we support each other in that quarterback room. He was in there, I was cheering my butt off. When I was in there, he was cheering his butt off. So, I love TD. I think he played great tonight, and we just want to keep it rolling.
Todd Centeio makes the most of his time in the Owls' first road win of the season.
We'll have more from Temple's trip to Greenville, North Carolina, coming up on Inside the Nest. Hello and welcome back to TV Studio 3 for yet another live edition of Inside the Nest. Alongside Dan Wilson, I'm Brooklyn Vaughn.
A power outage, a punt for charity, and a potential quarterback conundrum. Thursday night's matchup at ECU had it all. And let's start with a look back at Temple's first AAC win of the season at ECU.
Rod Carey and his Owls went down to Carolina for some Thursday night football. It was a blackout for the ECU student section, and they were thrilled as it was the Pirates who struck first with this touchdown to C.J. Johnson. Pirates looking to extend their lead here, but Jake Verity was aiming for the wrong uprights.
Forget the uprights. It's hard to stay in good hands when you totally miss the net.
Yeah, no kidding, Dan. Struggling on offense, the Owls throw a curveball here and put Todd Centeio in at quarterback.
Centeio showed his dual threat on this drive, showing off his legs right there, as well as his arm with this pinpoint throw to Brandon Mack. But all the Owls could muster on this drive is a field goal. That makes the score 7-3.
Midway through the second quarter here as Temple takes the lead as the redshirt senior Jagger Gardner finds a hole and cruises right into the end zone for 6.
Temple's ground game was clicking on Thursday night as both backs combined to average almost 6 yards per rush.
And after an ECU field goal, the Owls' ground assault continues. And this time it's the stud freshman himself, Dray Davis, punching it in to give the Owls the touchdown lead. Second half now, Anthony Russo drops back and his turnover problems continue. Is Kendall Futrell, remember that name? Dan, that was your player to watch last week. He forces this one out and ECU will recover. The Pirates couldn't capitalize and the Owls will extend their lead even further as Isaiah Wright shimmies into the end zone for his 4th touchdown on the season. That'll extend the Owls to a 24-10 lead. The ECU stadium took its blackout theme a little too seriously. Check this out, the stadium lights will cut out during this Jade and Blue reception.
Turned out to be a 10-minute delay and too little too late for an ECU comeback.
Yeah, the Pirates get a touchdown late here, but it was not enough as the Owls improved to 4-1 on the season with a 27-17 win over those Pirates.
We knew all week that he was gonna have a series in the first half, series in the second half. He just brings a different dynamic with his legs, and I think he did a great job tonight. Tough atmosphere. I think he came in and handled it well. But like you said, we support each other in that quarterback room. He was in there, I was cheering my butt off. When I was in there, he was cheering his butt off. So, I love TD. I think he played great tonight.
That's been going on since I got here. We always had good guys in the quarterback room. We always help each other. Me and Trad on the sideline. When we don't see the field, we over there in Russo's ear telling them what we see.
That helps out so much because there's not a lot of quarterbacks that can move like him. You feel me? Like they can run, but they can't move like him. So that Toddy running in practice, that just helps us out on defense.
You get a little bit of a different perspective. I got to see a little bit of. Not that I don't see it out on the field, but see a little bit more of how the safeties are playing, how the corners are playing. It's a little bit more laid back on the sidelines, being able to see those looks. But different perspective. Every play I was getting the play call, making sure I was locked into the play call, making sure I was taking a mental rep because I knew at any moment they could throw me back out there.
Ray Davis and Isaiah Wright continued their strong seasons, both with big games on Thursday night. Davis averaged 6.5 yards per carry and a touchdown, while Wright averaged 11.5 yards per catch and a touchdown as well. Russo threw for 22 for 34 and 208 yards and a passing touchdown on Thursday. It was also the first game of the season in which he did not throw an interception. For ECU, quarterback Holton Ehlers threw for 202 yards and 2 touchdowns on just 19 of 39. freshman receiver C.J. Johnson had the best game of his young career with 100 yards on 8 receptions and 2 touchdowns. And Kendall Futrell was as advertised on the defensive end. Before leaving the game due to injury, he rattled off 2 sacks, 5 total tackles, and 3.5 of them for a loss.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the headlines. A big one coming out of the ECU game. Temple has now scored 20-plus points in 17 straight games. That's the best stretch in program history. Memphis is the only remaining opponent on the Owls' schedule that is allowing less than 20 points per game on defense. Another standout day for Isaiah Wright, who passed Robbie Anderson and is now number 9 on Temple's all-time reception list with 118 catches. He also recorded his 11th career receiving touchdown, which ties him for number 9 on Temple's all-time list. Wright is 21 receptions away from moving into second all-time in program history and would need 56 more throughout the remainder of the season to break his former teammate Ventel Bryant's current record. Bryant, by the way, since I'm talking about him, was signed to the Dallas Cowboys active roster last week, but he did not register a snap in the team's loss to the Green Bay Packers on Sunday. Not only are the Owls excelling on offense, but check out this stat. Temple is ranked 7th in the country of top defenses in yards per play, limiting opponents to just 3.96 yards per play. Last year, Temple finished 11th in the country, allowing a bit more than 4.5 yards per play.
Thursday night's game was an interesting one. Between the lights going out, the fan blackout, several players lost their shoe in this game during a play. And then there was this moment that took us off the field.
Yeah, after making a video to call out ESPN color commentator and former NFL punter Pat McAfee, Scott Hayward, a video coordinator for Temple football and better now known as Macho Scotty Smalls, was the talk of the game on social media.
And then this is before the game. You got a chance to hang with Scotty and deliver the challenge in person. Got a little stretch in before he was rocking it. That's when you got a chance to meet him, Matty H.
Well, when you're as explosive as Scotty Smalls, you got to make sure you loosen up those muscles, just like these players are right now in the fourth quarter. He had to punt it 30 yards, and Macho Scotty Smalls, with the explosivity of a power lifter, launched that thing 34 yards. 10K to a charity.
That's for the brand #1. Pressure makes diamonds. Diamonds last forever. Lock in.
So here's how it worked. Macho Scotty Smalls, who you just saw, he had to punt a ball 30 yards for former NFL punter Pat McAfee to donate $10,000 to a charity of his choice. And by the way, that charity was the Boys and Girls Clubs of America.
Good stuff. And of course, we just got word too, by the way, that Rod Carey will be matching that donation. Pretty cool. And if you didn't see this, Thursday night all-name team, Scotty Smalls found his way up there as well.
You saw Pat McAfee hitting him with the hashtag for the brand on Twitter.
Yep.
Never underestimate the power of social media.
Yeah. Before the game on Thursday night, the Twitter account at the Temple football video crew had only about 150 followers. We just checked as of Tuesday, nearing 1,100 followers on Twitter. That's right, Dan. Never underestimate the power of Twitter.
Back to business at hand, we want to move down the street and welcome in Inside the Nest reporter Ray Dunn, who is live at Edbrook-Olson Hall.
Hey Ray, obviously Todd Centeio seeing a little bit of action, a little bit more action than he's used to this season so far. What do you make of this whole quarterback conundrum, and what do you expect Coach Carey to talk about today?
Thanks, guys. Yeah, there's quite a few things I expect head coach Rod Carey to touch on today, and Brooklyn, you hit that right on the nail to start off. It's that quarterback situation. Anthony Russo, obviously the starter coming into the season. Todd Centeio working his way into it so far with 2 series against ECU. It'll be interesting to see how they approach that situation going forward. And some of the other things I expect them to talk about, as Dom mentioned last week, this is the gauntlet of Temple's schedule. They got 3 huge games coming up, 2 of them against unbeaten ranked teams, and the third one being the 2-time reigning AAC champions in UCF. So a lot to talk about there. And then finally, that third-point defense is going to be huge for this week. Memphis, the only team you mentioned earlier, Temple facing so remaining in the season, allowing under 20 points per game, and Temple's defense, obviously a very talented unit. So it's going to be a defensive battle there on Saturday.
Thank you, Ray. And before we head back to Edbrook-Olson Hall for Rod Carey, we have more to break down for you from last week's game.
That's right. It's time for us to take a little bit of a game review here. Well, we've talked about him quite a bit these past few weeks, and that's because Ray Davis continues to put up impressive numbers game in and game out. The true freshman finished with a touchdown and 24 carries down in Greenville for 157 yards total. He averaged 6.5 yards per carry, and I'll talk a little bit more about his growing role as a leader on the team in just a few minutes.
We're going to go to the wideouts now. And the stat lines for them and the single-digit wideouts, Brandon Mack and Isaiah Wright, were nearly identical in this game. Both had 9 catches on Thursday night, with Mack totaling 107 yards and averaging about 12 yards per catch. Meanwhile, Isaiah Wright had 104 yards and 11.5 yards per catch. Wright, however, did find the end zone in the third quarter, and he also had the Owls' longest reception of the night at 26 yards. Brandon Mack's longest reception in the game, 25 yards.
Shifting now to the defensive end of the ball, the Owls' front seven once again had a stout performance as ECU just could not get anything going on the ground. Pirates' rushing attack was unable to cross the century mark, finishing the game with 98 yards on 34 attempts. One of our keys to the game last week was for Temple to force this game into quarterback Colton Aller's hands, and that is exactly what the Owls defense did on Thursday night.
It was certainly a dark night for ECU's offense, but with 3:53 left in the fourth quarter, the same was true for the Owls offense. The lights quite literally went out in the middle of a play at Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium, which led to a 10-minute delay. Remember when this happened at the Superdome in New Orleans during Super Bowl 47? That power outage was twice as long as the one on Thursday night, with a few more people watching back then. And we have to take a quick timeout, but don't go anywhere.
When we come back, we'll take you to Rod Carey's weekly media press conference. Inside the Nest, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside the Nest.
You are looking live at the podium at Edinburgh Olsen Hall, where Rod Carey is expected any moment now. And Brooklyn, you know, a lot of things to get to in this presser here this week. They're going to have a long week coming off the ECU win. They're going to be hosting Memphis, the second time they've hosted a ranked team this season. They've looked a lot better at home. And one thing I definitely want to hear him mention, is the turnovers. We mentioned earlier in the show, Anthony Russo has yet to throw, or that was the first game against ECU, rather, where he hadn't thrown an interception. Right. He still fumbled the ball, so taking care of the football as they kind of reach this tougher part of the schedule is going to be big. Another thing I want to hear is the penalties, 12 penalties for 80 yards.
And there he is, Rod Carey. Looks like he's making his way to the podium at Edinburgh Olsen Hall. We're going to go ahead and send it over to EO and listen to what Rod Carey has to say. Okay, it looks like we're having some tough technical difficulties here with Rod Carey's mic. So in the meantime, just a couple things. Another thing that I want him to talk about today in this press conference, I'm expecting him to talk a little bit about the penalties too. 12 penalties for 80 yards. You know, it's costing the Owls not just their turnovers, but these penalties too.
And a gauntlet they have on this season, you know, now playing Memphis, they're going to have UCF. I believe maybe we have Rod Carey back. Let's listen in.
Delivers it on time, linebackers who can really run, defensive line that's extremely disruptive from their defensive ends to their inside guys, and then a secondary that is going to change it up on you and challenge you at some points, and they like to keep you guessing. And then a special teams team that, you know, I think they've executed at a high level, you know, from a surprise onside last week to change in field position with their punter. It's a good team. What you expect out of them, or what we've all come to expect out of Memphis right now. So they're a good football team. So with that, we can open up for questions. Crickets. Wow.
When you go to the two-quarterback system, how much from the other side of it do you think it affects Memphis in their preparation now? They're going to have to look for something else.
Yeah, yes and no. Like if we were going ahead and game planning that, you might have a set of calls for that quarterback. But there again, you don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole because you probably don't have a big enough snapshot yet of what to do. So, it's 6 and 1/2 dozen the other probably is what they're going through. And we've had to do that in the past as well. And you run into the same kind of conundrum.
It looks like because they're so different type of quarterbacks, that's maybe why this thing will work.
Well, I think it'll work because Toddy's a good player. That's really the first reason why it'll work. And, different. I mean, they still, like today in practice, Toddy ran the exact same offense that Russo was running. So, I think he's just a good football player. And that's, I think, totally what makes it work. Now, he has a different skill set, too, but, we like to use that. But that's probably why.
Was this past week the right time to kind of break that out as opposed to earlier in the season?
I don't know. Probably coming off of a Georgia Tech game where we really ran the ball effectively and just weren't maybe explosive at times, and maybe hoping that would give us some explosion in the run game. I think it did a little bit. I don't know. That coupled with probably the number one reason that Toddy, he's earned it. He keeps playing really well. And so it's tough to get two quarterbacks on the field, right? I mean, you got two left guards that are battling it out. You rotate series, no one asks you a question about it. But you got two quarterbacks that are doing it. Now that's the big question. So probably he's earned it more than anything.
But they bring different things to the table, like Todd. He gets back there, he doesn't see a receiver, he takes off.
Yeah. Well, I think there's certainly that element. That's his skill set. That's what I'm talking about, him earning it, right? He's not trying to be someone or something else. He's executing at a high level and earning it being himself. And that really is probably what prompted, let's get him on the field more than anything else.
And that said, he threw the ball well too the other night. I mean, it's not, I know you're not just bringing him out there to run the ball, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he threw the ball effectively.
Yeah, well, he still plays quarterback, not running back. So, I mean, he's going to throw the ball too. He can do that well. And obviously, he has different strengths in the throw game than Russo, just like in the rest of it. But, he's quarterback.
What about coming off the Thursday night game? You obviously get extra preparation. Everybody likes to talk about the short week. How much do you think the extra prep has helped you, or did you use that time to let everybody heal up because they played so much football? How do you kind of handle that?
Yeah, I think it was an advantage. Really, it's the first time on all the Maction stuff that I'd done previous. When you start those midweek games, you really never stop them. And last year we had 5 of them. And so we've never really gone from a Thursday back to a Saturday. So that was a little new for us, but what we used it for was to really let them heal up. We played 2 physical football games in 5 days and really didn't get back on the field until Monday. Now, we did some things, meeting and such, but really didn't get back on the field till Monday. So guys felt pretty good yesterday, and today was it was one of those good old-fashioned slobber knockers again. That was really good. It was really good, like one of our best Tuesdays we've had in a long time.
Do you expect to get Randall Jones or Crump back this week?
Crump practiced the last 2 days. So did Randall. I would expect, from what I'm seeing right now, I would expect that Crump would play. Again, we got to finish the rest of the week. Yeah. I don't know about Randall at this point. I think he's getting close, but he's probably a little further away yet.
Memphis boasts a rather talented defense. What have you been most impressed with they've been able to do so far this season?
Just they disrupt you so much with the different things they're doing schematically, but their players are so disruptive. They're up the field, penetrating players. Linebackers are downhill, and like I said, they really change their coverage. They're not going to sit in one coverage all day. So you got to mind your P's and Q's when you're playing a defense like that. And their defense, I think their offense is getting all the headlines. I think they're averaging, I don't know, someone told me like 40 points a game. But so that made me look. and go see what their defense was giving up a game, and giving up just under 20. So, I mean, that's pretty good. So, you know, they're just really disruptive.
Running back, I know Jagger Gardner and Ray Davis both kind of doing the thing there. You mentioned a couple times about Kyle Dobbins getting into the fold. Where do you see him falling into the game plan for this week?
Yeah, right now, you know, you'd see Jagger and Ray kind of doing what they've been doing, and Dobbins being in that role along with maybe a Tavon Ruley, something like that as that third guy. Getting that guy ready as the season goes on is the most important thing. So right now it would be kind of status quo.
You see Ray in terms of, you know, holding up over the course of the season. I think he had 29 carries and then, you know, came back on a short week. And
who, Ray?
Yeah.
You talking about Ray?
Yeah, you feel like he can keep up this kind of workload?
You know, so far he has. If I knew the future, you and I should go to Vegas, right? I mean, I don't know for sure if he can, but he's certainly earned the right to try, and that's why we're trying to get the other guys ready too, because it is a physical pounding.
The way their quarterback and running back are able to just move the ball down the field.
Well, it's impressive. Their quarterback delivers it on time where it should be, and runs the offense very well, and he's a talented kid too. And then they're running backs, because I know the one kid's getting all the headlines, and he should. But their running backs are really good, decisive, strong, low center of gravity, you know, great vision backs that just present problems.
I know for you it's a week-to-week preparation type deal, but looking at this schedule going forward, it's 2 unbeaten teams in the next 2 weeks who are ranked, and then 2-time reigning AAC champs. How do you kind of keep the program grounded with such a big stretch coming up?
By not talking about that. We just talk about what's right in front of us.
How much are you looking forward to playing a ranked opponent again this season?
Yeah, I probably haven't thought about that, to be honest with you. But now that you say, yeah, it's exciting. Adds excitement to the game. Certainly does. And anything that gets the game more exciting, gets more people in the stands, I'm all for. Let's do that. So I think that's, yeah, excited.
Obviously, each game and each opponent are different, but you kind of look at it like Maryland, where you guys kind of have to, you know, control the football and really beat them in the trenches.
Well, you listen. The way I was raised in football is that, yeah, you'd like to, you know, do like the old wishbone teams do, is get up by 2 scores and grind it out at 55 minutes of possession, and they don't have the ball, they can't score, right? But that's not today's football. You can't expect to do that. Defenses are too good, offenses are too good. So, you know, and we have too many guys on the outside that are explosive players offensively. You got to get them the ball, they've earned it. So we're going to do what we do.
Any truth in maybe signing a punter after the guy beat out Pat McAfee?
Yeah, how about that? Get what, Macho Steven Smalls? Yeah. No, that was awesome. You know, what an unbelievable thing that turned into, really, for the end for charity. And then you know, I kind of got on board there, and I'm matching that gift to Pat too, and getting that all worked out, because why not? Fun thing, let's do it.
It's only the second team you'll play this year that hasn't had a first-year coach. How does that kind of affect your?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I suppose that's right, because Buffalo, right?
Yeah, they're the only one.
Yeah, Buffalo is the other one.
Change your preparation?
No, not really. To be honest with you, no. I mean, you know, the film kind of just, if you dig into the film, the answers are usually there. Now it's a matter of if you can get them right on the test. You may know the answers, but the questions are asked sometimes a little different on Saturday.
I know you talked a little bit about Memphis QB already, but he's kind of a different style than a lot of the QBs you face. He's much more of a pocket passer. You know, how much does that change the preparation on defense?
Yeah. I think a few of the guys have been pocket, but they've had the ability to move, and he certainly has the ability to move too. So you always are looking for that and understanding that, you know, a broken play can result in first down, so you try not for it to be a broken play. But really, it's like any quarterback that you're going to play. If you can put him in passing downs and you can lay your ears back and go after him, move him off his spot even if you don't get home, then you're going to be successful, because it's hard to play quarterback when you got some dudes coming off the edge rearing down at you.
To piggyback on that, does it help with the defense preparing against Anthony, who's a pocket passer, but also has the ability to run if he needs to?
Yeah, we did some good on good today, like we do every Tuesday and Wednesday, and they've seen Russo a lot, and obviously Toddy a lot too, who gives the other element for the other guys we've seen. So absolutely, it's a help. I think anytime you do good on good, it's a good thing. If I could use good more times in a sentence, I would right there. Okay?
Get back to the schedule a little bit. When you see all these ranked teams coming up, is that kind of what you expected out of this conference?
I did not know what to expect out of this conference, to be honest with you, and I still don't. I'm week 2 into it. I have not looked too far ahead. In the summer, we did our summer studies, and when you get in the weeks, man, it's just all this team. So I can't say it's what I expected. Everyone knew Maryland was going to be good, and they are. So that's not a shock.
Penalized 12 times for 80 yards on Thursday. What have you guys kind of done to address that in practice?
Yeah, we've gotten after that now. Try to turn up the pressure in practice. Try to simulate as much as you can pressure situations, and get those juices flowing so that your body has some muscle memory not to do those things, and to fall back on your training a little bit. And so that's really what we've done. And I explained it to them. And so we started practice different. We've done some different drills in practice. We've cranked up the intensity, which all is a good thing anyways, because when you're practicing at a high level, it's only going to help your play.
So all the penalties can be attributed to you thought the guys were overhyped for Thursday?
Well, there were some combat penalties in there too, and combat penalties are combat penalties, right? I mean, you could call holding every play if you wanted to as a referee in this game today. But really the ones we were focused on taking our responsibility for on this is the self-inflicted ones, the offsides, the pre-snap penalties. You have to take responsibility for those, because those are only our fault.
Is that because they use their hands now?
Yeah.
You look at a guy like Archell, if he could use his hands, he'd have never gave up a sack.
Well, I know, he was pretty good. Different defensive ends now today, though, too, I can tell you that. But yeah, no, I think that's where it comes from. Both sides can use your hands, and there's a lot of liberal, like when I was playing, you could use your hands. And wow, am I dating myself right here? I can't believe I started this. You use your hands, but offensive linemen couldn't go outside of your framework. Well, now you can. You just can't impede a dude's progress. And same on defense.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, and that was Rod Carey addressing the media in his weekly press conference at Edgar-Golson Hall. Well, we're going to break this one down, but we're going to bring in our beat reporter, Dom Gillespie, to help us do so. Hey, Dom.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
So I want to start off, obviously, the headline here, this quarterback situation. He addressed the conundrum a little bit, saying, Toddy in practices now, he's running the same offense as Russo. Having him in this game is going to be key for the Owls to trip up Memphis.
Yes, I believe so. It's kind of similar to what happened against ECU in that the offense was struggling early on. They wanted to give the defense something new to look at. Toddy brings a new dynamic to the team with his running ability. And Carey even said it in his press conference. He's a quarterback, too. He does know how to throw the football. And they're going to have to do a similar thing against Memphis, who is, as he said as well, a top-ranked team in the nation and probably one of the best defenses the Owls will see the entire season.
Now he's going to go into a more difficult AAC opponent, only the second AAC game he has ever coached. They will be returning home where they are much better than they are on the road in a sample size of 2. And also they're going to have a long week to heal up. How do you think those two factors will play into it this week?
The long week will certainly help the team. He mentioned it with the injuries. Linwood, Crump, and Randall Jones, who we haven't seen a lot of single-digit receivers so far this season. Linwood, Crump, one of the Owls' best cornerbacks this season. But the long week will help them in preparation going against a very good Memphis team, probably the best defense other than Temple in the AAC. So getting out those nicks and bumps and having a long time to prepare for a good team will always be an upswing for football team.
Yeah, and now going to the committee approach running back situation, Jagger Gardner, Ray Davis continuing week in, week out to put up some impressive numbers. Rod Carey talking about them a little bit today in their press conference, but also saying, Kyle Dobbins is on deck, Tavon Ruley's on deck.
Yeah, he's mentioned it in the past couple press conferences about Kyle Dobbins, but I think he's going to stick with the Ray Davis, Jagger Gardner 1-2 punch. Ray Davis probably getting a little more carries. He has earned that right so far this season, and it's kind of like the quarterback thing. You have to see how the defense is reacting to one running back, and then you throw the other one in there to give them different looks. Ramon Davis, obviously true freshman, been playing out of his mind so far this season. You mentioned him in the news notes and injuries, the post-game breakdowns. But Jagger Gardner will be in the game. He will get a good amount of snaps. But it's very good going forward to have this kind of dual threat going into defenses.
Dom, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Dom. Well, Rod Carey is ready for Memphis, and we caught up with the players after Tuesday's practice to hear how they're preparing for their next opponent, an undefeated and nationally ranked conference team.
That's my boy. That's my boy since I got here, man. I love him so much, love him dearly, and I'm always rooting for him. And it's just we learn from each other, so always a good mix. I just think it gives us a different look for other teams to get ready for. So I feel like it puts us in an advantage.
Yeah, I think it's big time, bringing a different dynamic with his legs, being able to kind of move the pocket with him, do some quarterback run game stuff. I think being able to have that different dynamic, they got a game plan for both. They got a game plan for me in the pocket, making throws, doing the run game stuff, as well as him going in there and making all types of plays. So I think for them just to have to focus on all those different looks and game plan for that, I think it's just another challenge that we present to other teams. Support each other all the way, all those guys in that quarterback room, we all want the best for each other, we all want the best for the team. Whatever we need to do in that quarterback room to get this team a W, we're going to do. So if we have to play one guy, two guys, 10 guys, whatever it is, in that quarterback room, we want to do whatever it is to get Tumble football a win.
That just takes away from Russo, game planning for Russo. So Russo, they game plan more for me. Russo goes out there and has a great game. If game plan for Russo, I go out there and have a great game. So either way, I feel like we're at a great advantage. They have to. That you have to game plan for Russo and you have to game plan for me. So we bring two different elements to the game. So that you just have to game plan for it.
I think that was big for us, but like I said, being able to have those different looks just presents different challenges, different game planning challenges for these teams, and I think we're going to continue to do that, and I think it's helped us out last week, and I think it'll continue to help us out. Yeah, I think it means a lot to us. Homecoming, going to have alumni, guys that played here, the guys that kind of made Tumble football what it is today. They're going to be there, so we want to get a win for them. But like we said every week, we're focused on us. We're not focused on Memphis or what their rank is or what day it is, whatever it is, what the weather's like. We're not worried on all that. All we're worried about is going out, executing our game plan to the best of our ability, trusting that game plan, and like I said, executing it.
A lot of good stuff from Toddy and Anthony Russo there, sharing the love, supporting each other as they battle it out for this quarterback position. But of course, mentioning that homecoming this week, the Memphis Tigers are making their way into town.
Yeah, definitely going to be a big game there. But taking a look at the schedule ahead, the Owls have a tough schedule coming up. First, they do have the ranked Memphis coming into Lincoln Financial Field this Saturday. Then they go on the road at SMU, and then they're going to come back and play the two-time AAC reigning champions UCF at home.
Yeah, and it's not going to be easy for them, Dan. Temple's opponents are a combined 15-2 right now. Like you said, two teams ranked at Memphis and SMU. This is going to be their make-or-break part of the season, their gauntlet.
This is conference play. This is the time to prove that Buffalo was indeed a fluke. That was their only loss so far this season. It was still early in the Rod Carey era. He has now moved into conference play. You heard him allude to it a little bit there. They're not looking ahead. He doesn't still know what the AAC completely is, but this is where, if the Owls want to get to that AAC championship game, go back there for the first time since 2016, these need to be the games that they take care of, especially at home, and it's a conference that's more open than ever.
Yeah, and our chief photog, Pat, he comes in with the hot take that the Owls, maybe they won't win another game this season, so obviously it won't be very easy for them. A couple tough opponents coming into town, and the Owls are back on the road to take them on. We have to go to break, but when we come back, we've heard from Rod Carey and the players about Memphis now. It's our turn to look ahead.
Don't go anywhere. Inside the Nest, we'll be back soon.
Going back on the road, going to a really, really impressive Temple team. a 60-minute battle. I can promise you that. They got a couple extra days, to prepare for us. They played Thursday night, so we're gonna have to get back and go to work. But I know our guys are excited about the opportunity.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. Taking a look at Memphis. They are 5-0 for the first time since 2015. That's a year in which they defeated the Owls in the AAC championship game. They went on to lose to Auburn in the Birmingham Bowl. They're now under third-year head coach Mike Norvell, as you just saw him speaking there. They are 2-2 versus Temple since joining the AAC. Expect a strong run game and some stingy defense. Old school style of football, if you will. Their biggest game to date for the Owls against number 23 ranked Memphis, the second-ranked team they will take on this season, dating back to when they hosted Maryland in week number 3. But this, of course, is a conference game. The first home conference game is homecoming, much bigger stakes this time around. The last time Memphis came to the Link, well, it was a little bit back. It was back in 2015, that season where they started 5-0 and won the AAC championship. They lost to the Owls 31-12 at the Link that year. All 12 points for Memphis. They came off the kicker's foot. The kicker that day for the Tigers, now current Eagles kicker Jake Elliott.
Now let's go ahead and take a look at how 2019 has been treating the Tigers so far. Their most notable wins so far come against Navy and Ole Miss, but the Tigers are at the top when it comes to offensive performance throughout the league. They ranked second in pass efficiency, third in points per game, and fourth in fourth down conversions. They aren't too shabby on defense either, ranking second in points allowed per game, first in pass yards allowed, but their outlier is clear, finding themselves 11th in the American when it comes to rushing yards allowed per game. Saturday will be Temple's first big AAC test as Memphis comes to town for homecoming.
Let's take a look at some Tigers to watch. I'm going with the Tigers man out of the backfield, Kenneth Gainwell. He's a 5'11 redshirt freshman. He's averaging more than 8 yards per rush, 124 yards per game, and better than a touchdown per game. In Memphis's win over Louisiana Monroe, he went for 209 yards, the most ever by a freshman running back at Memphis in a single game. He's also the second freshman in Memphis history with 3 games with over 100 rushing yards. D'Angelo Williams had 4 back in 2002.
All right, Dan, watch out for the 6'1 sophomore defensive back, Dray Thomas. He has 21 tackles on the year so far and has also recorded a sack and a forced fumble, not to mention an interception which was returned for a touchdown. Believe it or not, he used to be a quarterback, but ever since approaching his coach back in 2017 with a request to switch positions, he's been a powerful force for the Tigers on defense. Thomas is a huge threat to the Owls offense, and Anthony Russo will definitely need to keep an eye out for him.
And now that you have our players to keep an eye on, here's what the Owls will need to do on Saturday to secure a win.
It's now time for our keys to the game. I'll start off. Big plays are needed out of Ray. A big day for Ray. Memphis has allowed 30 rushes of 10 or more yards, and that's good news for Ramon Davis. On the season, the defense has given up 4.05 yards per rush and 179.2 yards per game. Davis, of course, averaging almost 6 yards per rush.
My first key, it's going to be a challenge to the defense. You have to contain the freshman running back, Kenneth Gainwell. You heard me mention him and our players to watch. He runs all over teams, over 200 yards in Memphis' last game. Temple run defense allows 3.21 yards per carry. That's 48th out of 130 Division I teams. He's a young star on the rise. He's imperative to Memphis' offense and their success this season. He needs to be slowed down if the Owls are going to have a chance in this one.
Absolutely. The next stop for success for these Owls this week, they need to win the field position battle. Memphis punter Adam Williams, he's ranked 8th in the country with 47.22 yards per punt. Pretty impressive. Memphis' special teams is ranked 2nd in the country. Temple's special teams absolutely cannot say the same. They are ranked 129th out of 30 in the country.
And Brooklyn, their last stop to get them success for a win against Memphis on Saturday. Bottom line, they got to protect the football. They're 97th, the Owls are, out of 130 Division I teams with 9 turnovers. Russo is averaging still over an interception per game, despite not throwing one against ECU. He did have a fumble in that game. Some of the early mistakes with turnovers that they've had earlier in the season as they get into this tougher part of the AAC schedule, particularly against Memphis, it's not going to work if they want to have a chance to win.
When the 2019 season started, the Owls only had one experienced running back on their roster, Jagger Gardner. Well, with the departure of Raquel Armstead to the NFL, many wondered who else would step up and fill his shoes. Ramon Davis has answered that question. Most freshman D1 football players have plenty to worry about. New school, new system, new coach. It's often a year of transition, but that's not how Ramon Davis works. Just 5 games into his collegiate career, and running back Ray Davis is putting up veteran stats, averaging just better than 100 rushing yards per game.
I try not to think so much of it. I try to just simple it as it's just playing football. It's like playing football when you're younger. You're just a bigger stage, more people, a lot more fans. So I kind of just play football.
While Ray Davis continues to gain respect on the field, his impact's felt in the locker room as well, where even as a freshman, he brings a new sense of maturity and leadership to the team.
I tell him all the time, I'm so proud of not just what he does on the field, but the way he carries himself. As a true freshman, to have that toughness about him and be able to carry himself with such, strength and respect. And he's mature beyond his years. I tell him all the time he's going to be a great player, and he just keeps getting better week in and week out.
Davis already has the 6th most rushing yards ever by a Temple freshman, and the season isn't even halfway over. Working alongside redshirt junior running back Jagger Gardner is also helping. And even though Davis doesn't run like a freshman, he still is one.
Jagger has really helped me a lot. He's been here. He's been able to sit me down and just say, listen, everything is going to be fast-paced. Things are going to come at you quick. Just take a deep breath and, learn everything.
When I came in here as a freshman, you get overwhelmed with some things, I just told him to breathe, relax. You're a freshman. You got a lot to learn. At the same time, you're going to learn a lot playing. So I just told him to relax and, be patient.
Davis knows he has a greater role and responsibility on the team than most underclassmen, but he doesn't see it as an issue. He credits his older teammates with helping him transition to the big stage.
My role is getting bigger as the week goes on, and I'm just trying to be able to handle it and, try not to make too many mistakes.
Coach Carey has certainly gained some trust in the California native as Ray Davis has increased his carries per game to over 20 in the past 2 games. He's averaging 146 rushing yards per game, and he's also tallied 3 touchdowns in those games.
We have to go to break, but when we come back, we debate the Owls' road performance, Todd Centeio's role in the offense, and more field design disputes.
Hey, all that and more inside the nest. Will be back, and so will No Huddle in 1:30. Welcome back to Inside the Nest, and welcome back to our favorite segment, No Huddle.
5 minutes, 5 topics. Here we go. Brooklyn, first question. Overall, have you been concerned with the Owls' road performance this year?
Yeah, I have, and I think that started back in Game 3. Still, I expected to see a little bit more action from the Owls this past week against ECU. Obviously, a tough loss at Buffalo. They definitely didn't expect that, but again, Rod Carey blaming it that he wasn't prepared enough. And moving forward, that can't happen, especially moving into conference play now. These games mean more than that. So the preparation needs to improve. Going forward, taking on SMU, that's definitely not going to be an easy one for them. And so far, they've led us to believe that their road games aren't the easiest things.
Yeah, I get it. You're on a short week. You're going down to ECU. They're revved up to play the game on Thursday Night Football, but they did not handle them as well as they needed to. This is a team that they've never lost to since joining the AAC. We obviously know what happened when they took on Buffalo at Buffalo. They were pretty much handled from beginning to end. This is a team that has looked much, much better at home. I think it's naive to say that they haven't been considerably worse on the road, and that's something that really has to pick up as they get into the AAC part of the schedule.
Yeah, Dan, next question. Should Todd Centeio be more involved in this Owls offense?
I'm going to say yes. Look, the old cliche is if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, right? Anthony Russo has not played as well as he would have liked or as Owls fans would have liked so far this season. We mentioned it earlier, averaging more than an interception per game, and he didn't even throw one against ECU. The Owls have 9 turnovers on the season. Most of them are indeed Anthony Russo's. But there's nothing wrong with a little healthy competition. If Centeio and Russo, they're friends, they're obviously supporting each other publicly, but this isn't Russo's job to just hold regardless of how he plays. If you want to get Centeio more involved in the offense, Rod Carey said he has earned that right. Have a little bit of competition, maybe motivation for the both of them. It'll only elevate the team.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here, Dan. I think Todd Centeio absolutely belongs a little bit more involved in this Owls offense. Kind of going back to my point that I made about the committee approach last week, having both Ray Davis and Jagger Gardner involved, injury prevention, keeps them both fresh, keeps them both healthy and ready to go.
Brooklyn, are you more impressed with Temple's running backs or wide receivers so far this season?
All right, well, I'm going to say that the wide receivers, they were definitely off to a hot start. But I think that the running back situation has stolen the show. Of course, that freshman Ray Davis, I've talked about him all show, talked about him for the past couple weeks now. He's stealing the spotlight. He has 29 carries against Georgia Tech, 24 against ECU, with 135 yards and 157 yards in just those 2 games alone. Now compare that to Jagger Gardner, redshirt senior. He's been around, he knows the drill. Only 18 carries and 14 carries in both Georgia Tech and ECU. 69 yards and 69 yards in the Georgia Tech game, 60 yards against ECU. Total that up 129. Ray Davis is blowing that out of the water in his individual games. So I think that, of course, Ray Davis is a powerhouse, but Jagger Gardner's also picking up a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm going to say the running backs as well. As you mentioned, Jagger Gardner's played well, but really because what Ray Davis has provided just in his first year on the Owls football team. Look, you knew you had stud receivers between Brandon Mack, Isaiah Wright, but going to Ray Davis, this is something that I have been more impressed with, quite frankly, because we weren't expecting it so much so soon. This has been probably the best player on the Owls offense so far this season. He wasn't necessarily expected. I know Rod Carey said he's seen it over the course of the summer. They knew they were getting a good recruit, but he has been one of the biggest pleasant surprises for the Owls this season, has been imperative to their success thus far.
Absolutely.
Brooklyn, we have another field design dispute. Cincinnati's field, and Temple's going to be, they're obviously in the AAC as well. They have an all-black field. Do you love it or hate it?
Well, thankfully, this was just a social media, a little joke that they were playing, because I personally think it's hideous. I think it's so ugly. I think it's worse than Boise State's blue, obnoxious field as well. I don't know if we have a picture of it or not, but the all-black field, it's against NCAA regulations with those red lines. Like I said, thank goodness. I
think the NCAA should allow this. Imagine how cool that would look, especially for a night game. An all-black field, it's unique. Look, yeah, there you have it. All black field. When do you ever see stuff like that before? You sometimes see it in basketball with, courts like Oregon's. I think it looks really, really cool, especially for a night game.
All right, and of course, everyone is always dying to know our prediction for this week. Dan, what do you have? Temple versus Memphis.
I think this is a difficult game. I think Memphis is going to win a close one here. Temple obviously plays much better at home, but the turnovers, Anthony Russo's play, Memphis's offense is much, much better than a number of the teams they've played so far this season, and they also have a really stingy defense, as we alluded to earlier in the show. Georgia Tech did not have the offense to make them, make those, to make those mistakes costly. Georgia Tech only put up 2 points. Memphis is averaging close to 40 points per game. That's going to be the reason that the Owls lose a nail-biter.
All right, well, I disagree, Dan. I think that the Owls are going to come out on top for this one. Big energy, homecoming. They're playing at home. They've got the advantage.
Well, it's time for us to calm down here on set, but don't touch that remote.
When we get back from our last break of the day, we'll take a look around the AAC with beat reporter Dom Gillespie. Welcome back to Inside the Nest. Now that conference play is full speed ahead, let's take a look around the rest of the AAC.
We welcome back Inside the Nest reporter Dom Gillespie. And, Dom, the AAC standings, they're a little bit more congested than they have been in years prior.
Yeah, the standings and the AP Top 25 got a little shaken up this weekend. Some big wins and losses that can help the Owls beef up their resume going into these next couple of weeks. You go to that game in Cincinnati where the Bearcats took down Central Florida. Central Florida has kind of been the at the top of the East these past couple seasons. Well, now it's busted wide open, and the Owls and the Bearcats at the top of it now at 4-1 overall records and 1-0 in conference play. So it's really anyone's division right now.
Yeah, now Dom, how does what's going on out in the West, how does that affect Temple?
The West is where it can get very tricky for Temple. Those top 2 teams in the West find themselves ranked in the top 25 as well. And just one extra note, they're the Owls' next 2 opponents. Everyone knows I'm a glass half full kind of guy, so the Owls should see this as their own opportunity to make some noise and find their way back into the top 25 since 2016.
Dom, the Owls have a tough stretch coming up. How is the AAC different this year than maybe we've seen in prior years?
The AAC has kind of gone through a little bit of a role reversal, and that the East is the one that's usually stacked with all the teams. You look at last year, UCF, Temple, and Cincy, arguably the 3 best teams in the conference, all on that East side. Now you look to the West with the upswinging programs of SMU, Memphis, also add Tulane to that list, who have played some outstanding football to date. This could be the most competitive West Division we've seen in a long time.
Thank you, Dom,
Thank you.
so much for joining us.
And as conference play begins around the AAC, a few select players rose above the rest.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the AAC's Most Wanted.
I'm going to go with Kenneth Gainwell first. The Owls are about to have to worry about this guy this week. He's already got 6 touchdowns on the season. He's only a redshirt freshman. And that's right, he's coated with butter. Very, very difficult to bring down. He's also good at pass catching. He's got 17 receptions for 139 yards and a touchdown. He's fresh off a 200-yard performance.
All right, take a look at Xavier Jones, senior running back at SMU. Well, luckily, the Owls defense has another week of preparation to slow down this guy. You probably saw him during that game against Tulsa on Saturday. Jones came up big late in the 4th by scoring the game-tying touchdown that would allow the Mustangs to pull off a comeback win. He has 646 yards with 114 attempts through 6 games, 12 touchdowns so far this season, and he's averaging an impressive 5.7 yards per carry.
Lastly, going with the human highlight reel, it's the receiver from UCF, Gabriel Davis. He's a huge deep threat, and he's been a bright spot in a season that's been a little disappointing for UCF thus far. He has 38 receptions, 669 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns already. That's 17.6 yards per catch. He's coming to the link in a few weeks. The secondary cannot afford to lose a single step on this guy. He will burn you.
And as we wrap up our coverage today, we've got a big one Saturday with a noon kickoff. It's homecoming. Before we get to Saturday's game, though, we have some other business to tend to with OwlSports Update. They're live this Thursday at noon on TUTV. Anchors Adam Cronali and JJ Majowski will continue looking ahead to Memphis, bringing coverage on the volleyball team, and we'll finally be getting our first look at head coach Aaron McKee and the men's basketball team, looking back at their summer trip to the Bahamas and looking ahead to their season opener versus Drexel. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Inside the Nest. For Dan Wilson and our entire crew, I'm Brooklyn Vaughn.
Have a great week, everybody.